We all know that time is a limited resource. And as photographers, our time is truly limited, especially when it comes to the actual job of photographing. Because for most of us, photographing is not a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 kind of a job. It happens on the weekends, during the good light of the early morning or the late afternoon. And, if there are only 24 hours in a day, there may only be 4 or 5 good hours for photographing, especially if you are an outdoor, natural light photographer. And weekends, of course, are very limited. And there's the whole concept of maybe you want to have a life outside of working every single evening and weekend, because that is when people get together. That is when your kids have plays and sporting events and all of those kinds of things. God forbid you want to go out of town for a week or two. And certainly not during the fall season when many of us are working overtime to try to meet demand. Today's guest is my friend Jaye McLaughlin. She's been on the show a couple of times in the past. She was a guest on Mini Mentoring, and she shared one of her nightmare scenarios when Dana interviewed everyone back in the spring about, lessons they've learned from bad situations as a photographer. But she's never come on the show to share her business knowledge, which is a miss on my part. I take full responsibility because Jaye is one of these people who is like an amazing business person in addition to being a fantastic photographer. She reached out to me a couple of months ago about a strategy that she has been using in her family photography business for 9 years, I guess. She said since 2014, where she handles the lack of time that she has to take on clients in the busy season, not by saying, sorry, I'm booked and I can't work with you, but by using an alternate offer to get people to book for the following year. So how do you get someone to book for March or April or June of the following year when what they want is a holiday card photo? They want something right now. They have a problem and they need a solution, and Jaye has come up with one. And she has very generously agreed to share that brilliant idea on today's podcast. She's going to share all of the do's and don'ts, the things you need to know. And I am hoping that many of you will take this strategy and run with it this year. Before I cue the music and let you listen to that interview, I just want to raise one further thing as you listen. Now, this podcast episode is scheduled to drop in late August, which is not a whole lot of time before the busy season kicks in. So you may be listening to this thinking, well, there's no way that I can put this together for this season. I would encourage you to remember that when it comes to business, as long as you are not overpromising to the degree that you won't be able to fulfill, you can iterate. These kinds of tests or experiments do not need to be perfect right out of the gate. So if what Jaye shares sparks an idea for you, if you feel like this could be a good solution in your business, I would encourage you to try it. Maybe try it on a small scale, but try it this season. And then next year, you will have all of the lessons that you've learned from this year to draw on. One thing that I like to do when I try something for the first time is take the time necessary after I sort of see how it goes and make notes to myself. Because I always think I'm going to remember that this was too many sessions in a day, or this was, the booking process was too difficult for people, or whatever the case may be. And then I forget because, my head has 1,000 things going on in it. So as you iterate, as you try, certainly as you try anything really, but this for the first time, I want you to make notes to yourself about what's working, what's not working, what you would do differently in the future, because future you will really appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to let Jaye take over.
Welcome to This Can't Be That Hard. My name is Anami Tonkin, and I help photographers run profitable, sustainable businesses that they love. Each week on the podcast, I cover simple, actionable strategies and systems that photographers at every level of experience can use to earn more money in a more sustainable way. Running a photography business doesn't have to be that hard. You can do it, and I can show you how.
Jaye McLaughlin, welcome to This Can't Be That Hard. This is the second time that I have had the pleasure of having you on the podcast, but the first time was in one of those mini mentoring sessions. And I'm glad to have you back because the truth of the matter is, as a veteran of this industry and someone who has such great business strategies and tactics and stuff, the truth is that you make more sense as a guest sharing your knowledge rather than somebody asking me for insights. So I'm very excited for our conversation today. And I know that this idea and this strategy that you have been using for, sounds like almost a decade now, is going to be like everybody's brains are going to just start churning with ideas, because I think that this is a really smart tactic for some people. But before we dive in, why don't you introduce yourself, give everybody a sense of where you are, who you serve, and then we can just dive right in.
Sounds good. I'm really happy to be here. As I said, this is my favorite podcast. I can never get enough business tips. It's one of the things I love most about my business. Unlike many photographers in general. I also want to tell you that this is actually the third time I've been on the podcast. The first time was mini mentoring, and I was one of the lucky ones who got to share their nightmare stories.
Oh, yes,
And that was really fun.
Wasn't that a fun episode? Dana knocked that out of the park.
Yeah, especially for someone, it felt like you were reliving that, one of those awesome sitting around the table moments in Palm Springs, because I recognized the voices and everything. And certainly felt the mood that was definitely prevalent at the time. But anyway, I'm happy to be here as a guest. It feels like a big deal and an honor to me. So thank you.
Oh, no. The pleasure, the honor is all mine. So by the time that this drops, we are going to be coming in hot on the busy season and sort of walking that fine line that a lot of photographers deal with, especially family photographers, which is like, you make a lot of your money at this time of year, so you want to say yes to as many sessions as possible, knowing that in the spring, winter and spring months, things can, slow down for a period of time. You have kind of hacked that issue in your business in a way that is like, of course, why aren't more of us doing that? So why don't you go ahead and introduce this system or this strategy from the beginning?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jaye McLaughlin. I have an in-home family photography business, family lifestyle with a leaning towards documentary in New York. I'm just outside the city, and I serve Westchester County where I live, New York City, and Southern Connecticut. And like you say, for everybody, even if what they want is in home, and in theory it shouldn't matter whether the tulips are blooming or whether the foliage is beautiful, fall is when everybody reaches out. The highest by far percentage of inquiries come usually, only a few years into my business, at a time when I'm already booked up.
Right.
So the first couple of years I was feeling like, because who doesn't love new clients?
Sure.
In theory, I would love to say yes to everyone, but I couldn't, because I've always been very, this is a second career for me. And one of my career goals was, this isn't going to run my life.
Right.
This is going to work in a way that I can control how much time I spend on it. And obviously there were some bumps at the beginning, but a core value of my business has always been balance. So this came up as a way to maintain that balance without having to turn away every fall inquiry that came in, and also as a way to make more money and to add value to my clients' experience.
Yeah. And I mean, there are two problems with turning people away when they reach out, especially a new inquiry. One, of course, is the lost potential income of that session that they're calling about. But in the family business, when you say no to someone at a time when they are looking to book, if you say, oh, I would love to book you in the spring, but they have like, nope, we want to get holiday cards made or whatever, then what's going to happen is that they are going to go book with somebody else. And 8 times out of 10, 7 times out of 10, that means that you will never hear from that person again. So it's the immediate loss, but it's also the loss of future business that risk is. So I think a lot of photographers,
an entire relationship,
absolutely,
which can be in many cases, certainly in my case, most of my clients become either annual or every other year clients. So it's a 10-year long relationship for many of these people that I've had to turn away because I can't help you right now.
Right this minute. Yeah.
Yeah. So the the scheme is, it's called my annual holiday card micro mini session event. And it has evolved a little bit over the years, but the general structure is, and I'll talk about how I talk about it and how I roll it out and all
Yeah.
that. But basically, if you are a new parent or a young family who's reaching out to me in September, October, or even anytime after when I booked up for the year, and that gets earlier every year,
Right.
I don't have to say, sorry, booked.
Mm-hmm.
Have a nice life.
Mm-hmm.
I can say, I'm fully booked for my family lifestyle sessions now, but I do have this great promotion that I run every year. It's my annual holiday card micro mini session event, and I link to the details, which
Mm-hmm.
tell this family that if you book a full family lifestyle session the following year, pay your session fee, and agree to a date,
Mm-hmm.
then you are eligible for a slot, limited number of slots. So make sure you're in the right place in line
Yeah.
for one of these 3 Saturdays. Sometimes I throw Veterans Day in there if it fills up, where you show up with your kids and you get a free 10-minute session
Mm-hmm.
and one free digital file. The entire goal of which is to get that holiday card photo, which is
Right.
what you need right now.
Right.
So I'm going to solve your problem right now, and you'll have this whole different, better, wonderful experience with me in the form of a full family lifestyle session the following year.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. So brilliant.
yeah, yeah. And it used to be, you could do it anytime the whole year. As the years have gone on, the last few years I've only offered in the first 6 months of the year
Mm-hmm.
because I know that fall is, I want to encourage you to go earlier. But
Sure.
even before I did that, because of the way I roll these out,
Mm-hmm.
the fall was booking up first. And so the people who were coming to me later were being pushed back earlier into the year.
Sure.
So it was spreading my bookings instead of, having 70% of my business in September, October, November. I now have it spread from January all the way through October now, because now in November I only do these and a couple of schools. So I basically have all my marketing concentrated in the end of the year when people are paying the closest attention to me,
Right.
and I can sort of sit back and just do the work that I love for the first 9 months of the year without having to market. I still do market, obviously. I try to stay top of mind, and I'm
Uh-huh.
always paying attention to newborns, to new
Sure.
clients who
Yeah.
come in, and I'll save some room, but it really is a win-win, and it's been a great thing for my business. And every time I talk to somebody about it, I kind of wonder, like, why doesn't everyone do this? It just
I don't
makes
know.
so much sense.
It makes so much sense. This is one of those things where, I feel like in the movies, they talk about when there's a scene that has like really big impact, or if a stand up comedian is telling a joke, the good ones know to like pause and let everyone absorb that. And I feel like we should like have a blackout in the audio here for
Just picture it.
just imagine all those inquiries that you're getting. And, this ties in really nicely. It's like the most brilliant version of something that I have talked about before as a back pocket offer. Like, you want to be ready if somebody, isn't able to pay your prices or whatever, you want to have a backup offer. This is the backup offer for if you're booked and you need to like move the timing. This is an amazing way to do that. So, and I want to come back to the fact that this is all you do in the month of November outside of schools.
Yeah.
So you said 3 Saturdays plus potentially Veterans Day as well?
Yeah. Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4 total dates,
Yeah.
depending on my schedule and how hard I feel like pushing it,
Sure.
Yeah, and then I do 2 schools if it's this very rainy September or October. I mean,
Mhm.
even though I'm in home,
That's
I
your
don't want to.
reschedule.
I prefer not to do photos when it's, dark and
Dark.
dismal
Yeah.
out. So it just makes it much calmer. I mean,
Oh,
it's
that's
not
brilliant.
calm, and I frequently say out loud to my family, but I'm really talking to myself. November's really hard and kind of exhausting, and I feel really emptied out a lot of the time because I enjoy it. I won't say I don't enjoy it, but a session every 15 minutes or a kid every 3 minutes
Yeah.
is not why I love what I do.
Sure.
But I do enjoy it. They do make me a good portion of my income. And
Mhm.
like I say, this gets, otherwise, no one's going to call me in January and be like, hey, I really want to get in right now and do this.
No.
You know?
And it's so great to have that, once they've paid for that session fee and they're kind of like mentally into it, it works well. In my membership, I actually have a few families who regularly book in January because one of them or two of them, their kids' birthdays happen then, and they just sort of like have that set up as their cycle. I love those sessions, but it's never what somebody thinks of when they think of booking the timing for a session. But January in North Carolina, where I am, is often like we can have some really nice weather and the pressure just feels different. The time is different.
That is one of my favorite thing about this offering
Mm-hmm.
is that it changes the vibe
Mm-hmm.
of the regular session, which
Right.
again is where my heart is.
Yeah.
Even if the regular session is in fall, but especially if it's January through April,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I communicate, we're not spending the entire time trying to get that looking and smiling photo.
That one photo.
If you are a mom who is driven to have that one photo,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot less reminding that needs to happen if we already did it.
Yeah.
They are much more open to the sort of Kool-Aid that I'm constantly serving, which is it's not about that. We'll do a few of those, but it's mostly about you being you, enjoying your family on a beautiful, Wednesday morning when the kids are playing hooky from school or whatever it is. All of the spiel that I give is not falling on ears that are like, but the holiday coming.
Yes, but we have to get the card.
But the holiday coming.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, fair enough. Like I do understand, especially when somebody is investing a lot of money and they're,
Yeah.
sometimes it helps to have like we have a goal, but we all know as artists that when the pressure of that one goal is taken away, people do a much better job of just relaxing and enjoying themselves, which turns into better photos, which turns into happier clients. Like that's a cycle we all want to perpetuate. So speaking of your spiel, talk to me a little bit about how this really goes down. I mean, I understand that like this is in particular for new people who are reaching out to you, but do you market this to people that you've worked with in the past? Like how does that all go?
Anyone who books a session the following year is entitled to grab one of these spots, first come, first served. And there are many clients who do it every single year. And there are many clients who had been annual clients, and I like this, and I'll explain why, who have become every other year clients because their kids are, because I am, it is a big investment.
Mm-hmm.
Their kids are bigger. They're not changing as much every single year. And so they'll come to me one year for a full session, the following year for a micro mini, and the following year for a full session. That spaces it out so that I'm not serving the same 50 to 60 clients every single year. I can take new clients and maintain the relationships with the ones who've been coming to me since 2010.
Right.
So yeah, it is first come, first serve. It does encourage people to buckle down and get their calendars and pay attention to, what they need to do to get that spot.
Right.
Both for repeat clients and for new clients. And I roll it out that way. I mean, I start talking about it as soon as now I'm booking up earlier. I probably start talking about it in the summertime, and I'll be vague about it, but anyone who's paying attention to me knows that I do it every year.
Yeah.
The big surprise is coming. I'm doing it again. You'll be hearing about it. I'll start talking about it, like I said, end of August, beginning of September, and then I'll start saying, something big is coming, and sometime in mid to late September, I'll say the information is going to go to booked baby planners first, and then people who are already booked for next year, and then to my newsletter, and then it'll come here on my socials and on my blog and all the other places that I put it out to the general public. So that gets people paying attention. It gets people to subscribe to my newsletter. Typically, like when I do add that additional date, it allows me to give something to new inquiries that come in for the rest of the fall.
Yeah. How many of these are you lining up on each of those dates?
Between 6 and 8, depending on the location.
Yep.
Because again, it's 10 minutes. I can't wait for the good light. It has to be good light, and it also has to be a lot of variety within this number of spots I can reach in 10 to 15 minutes.
Sure.
Because yes, the promise is that you get that one perfect photo for your holiday card, but of course my goal is to get some fun ones and get some individual ones of each kid. They're kids only, but you really can get a lot in 10 minutes, some rocks to climb on, some stairs to jump off, so that when they get their gallery, and I give them whatever, however many I like,
Yep.
it's hard for them to say, okay, I'll just pick this one free one. They go into what now in the past several years, it's been straight simple sales. The small packages, your one free one. The middle package is, I think, 5,
Mm-hmm.
and all of them is the top package. And the top 2 now come with a $25 print credit, which it encourages them to buy more from me. And it's just kind of a win-win-win.
Yeah, I love that.
New clients, it's great because I've gotten to know them a little bit, and so it's less of a surprise when I show up.
Mhm.
Along those same lines, I'm kind of jumping around here, but I have to educate them before, during, and after, and also remind them before I come for them for their full session that it's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be total. Wasn't that crazy?
Right.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But we are not going to be doing that for an hour and a half. I promise. Me running around acting crazy,
Right.
throwing kids up on, rock
Yeah.
walls and,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. No,
No,
not
it
like
is.
that.
I know the vibe is totally different, but which is kind of fun because it does get like an even broader variety of types of images, and you get those like quiet images and individual photos and all that sort of stuff when you're doing a full session.
Exactly.
So you already sort of jumped into the answer to my next question, which was that these people they're not limited to that one image. Because I think that some people might hear the beginning of our conversation and say, okay, I get that you're setting up photos for the next year, but what if you're working all November and there's no income there because it's all these free micro mini sessions? Talk a little bit, and we don't have to talk specific numbers, but do you end up feeling like you're making a fair amount of money on the upsell options for those people?
Positively.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually make more typically. I mean, there's no guarantee.
Sure.
And I try really hard not to resent the people who choose their one, and it's not even a business resentment. If I do, it's like, what? You don't love that?
Yeah. Right. It's hard not to take that personally.
Yeah, but most of my people at least will buy the middle package.
Yeah.
Very few can. I mean, if you have one child and,
I know.
There are some people like, I budgeted for the big session and I told myself I'd only get one. It does happen, but it's rare. It is the exception to the rule. And so for each day of the event, I typically make at least what I would have made if I had taken a full session.
I love that. Yeah.
And usually much more.
Right.
Because it's probably 6 to 8 micro minis per day that I do it.
And whenever I'm adding this kind of bonus on, where it's like, for instance, when someone books a newborn session with me and they want a maternity session, it's like a unique situation where I will say, sure, we can do 2 full sessions. Or if you book the newborn session, which we're going to do simple sales style, I have sort of like a mini maternity package that I offer people that's a flat rate, and it's just an easy add-on, because I think a lot of people, especially people who this is their first child, they don't necessarily need like the whole shebang for maternity, because I'm not doing like, I do lifestyle maternity. It's not, it's not like the real posed, like we're going to go get your hair and makeup done and do the whole thing. So I offer that, and it's less money than I would charge for a standalone session typically. It's not free, but it's quite a bit less. And, there are some times where I'm like, is this worth it? But the fact of the matter is, if you look at it as an overall investment, where that is basically one session, then you're just adding to your bottom line. So you're booking a full session, and then you're giving yourself the potential for a really solid upsell with this micro mini. And you're making sure that person doesn't like bounce off of you and go find a different photographer.
Exactly. And it's a distinction that, I make it with my kids all the time. I say these are free, but they're not really free.
Sure.
They're included,
Yeah, no, exactly.
There's a big difference.
Of course. And it's not false advertising. Like that portion of it is not an additional purchase, but it's not able to be purchased unless you're already working together and committed to that.
Exactly.
So I can almost hear the people out there saying, okay, well, what if someone is a new customer to you and books one of these and pays the session fee and then never, comes and fulfills their full session? Has that ever happened to you?
Well, I don't let it happen because I require, this isn't like, okay, let's set it up and we'll talk next year. It's, here is my agreement. Here
Right.
is your date.
Yep.
Here is my cancellation policy. Because, I mean, people aren't trying to be devious, but they say, sure, March is fine. But then sometimes March is busy or
Right.
whatever reason, they push it back. And then, sure, you end up pushing it back into a month that does not serve one of the main purposes of these add-ons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have to give me a specific date. And if that date doesn't work, you're bound by the same cancellation policy that if you had booked this, without the add-on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
I'm very strict too.
No, I know. And that's what I love about you. And if anybody, sometimes we use these video clips on social media or whatever. So if you're looking, Jaye is like this smiley, lovely person. You meet her and she's just so warm and whatever. But this is the thing that I love about you is you're also like, no, you're not going to waste my time. My time is valuable. I am a real business person. And it's part of the reason that you've been in business for, 14 years. I know that you and I are on a similar timeline, I think. But
yeah, about 13 for me.
Yeah, same. It can be awkward or it can feel like you're kind of stepping out of your comfort zone to hold tight to your boundaries. But I have found that it is just vital to running a business.
It's the only way. For me personally, every strict term in my contract or policy that I hold came about because I felt icky at some point and said to myself, I don't want to feel icky about this anymore. This is the way it's going to be. And I'm going to make it completely clear up front.
Yeah.
And then we won't have to talk about it.
Yeah. No, totally. Clarity, it's so important. And we can feel like it's more comfortable to hang out in the gray areas. But when you make it really clear for your clients, I also believe that drives trust in your brand and your business such that somebody is comfortable working with you because they understand that if you have clear boundaries, they know where they can and cannot,
it becomes part of your
just easy
reputation and everything else too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Before I move on from that though, I do want to mention I've never had somebody not show up for the full session, but one of the changes that I made to my overall business model because of a situation like this was my session fee was much lower when I started doing this. And to me, and I almost don't think about it now because as I know, the longer you're in this, the more you almost take for granted that your people find you and that they, your marketing and your reputation and everything else, you find the right people. I have the right people now.
Yeah.
But earlier in my business, it wasn't necessarily so. And at that time, my session fee was low enough that there were a couple of people who were like, you'll do what if I what? Sure. Yeah. Here's $250. I need a holiday card photo.
Right.
Let's do this. And then when they showed up for the full session the next year, they just weren't. I need enthusiasm.
Yeah.
If you're as excited as I am to do this, then we are well aligned. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, anything else. If you're really psyched about this, you're my people.
Yeah.
And sometimes that $250 was just not enough for some families to reach that point. They were I was solving the immediate problem. It was worth $250 to them, and it wasn't the right fit.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So either they bought smaller packages or it just wasn't as fun for me or whatever. So now my session fee is high enough that it doesn't, I think it's people are going to look at my pricing and make sure that they want what I'm offering. But there was even an interim period, which I don't recommend, but it did solve this problem. It was just too confusing and complicated. I did like a session deposit.
Oh, yeah.
Where they paid $500 and $200 of that went towards their collection.
Right.
I did some problem solving, ended up not sticking with that solution, but you see what the goal was of that and why.
Yeah.
At the time, I felt like it was a good idea.
And I have done that sort of thing so many times where it takes a handful of, what if we do it this way? What if we do it this way? Yeah. And in hindsight, it's always simplifying, like making it easier to explain, to understand, to stick to, all of those things. That is where I have landed in every single of those kinds of problems.
And when you book a year out, remembering, did they pay a deposit? Do I owe them a credit?
Yeah.
So now it's much simpler.
Absolutely. Okay. What else does somebody need to know if they are considering implementing something like this in their business?
Yeah, I do have a couple of do's and don'ts, and really the don'ts are inverses of the do's, so it should be pretty straightforward. Do keep it very, very specific. For me, my in-home family sessions are that. Your family is there. We can do whatever you want to do. Let's think about what your life is like right now and what you want to remember about it.
Mm-hmm.
For these, it's just your kids and it's just 10 minutes and it's at a location that I choose at the time that you are signed up for. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're late or have to leave early, you know that is your allotted time, and that
Right.
is it. They're also specific in the sense that these are not custom sessions at all. In fact, these aren't micro mini sessions. It is a micro mini session event,
Right.
which is taking place on these specific days. If your kid gets sick, if something comes up and you miss it, I don't owe you anything. I don't need to be, rescheduling 25
Right.
custom 10-minute sessions in November. That would break me.
That would
It
be a
wouldn't be
nightmare.
sitting.
Uh-huh.
And part of making that possible is that I am very clear in the agreement when you book that if you have booked, 3 o'clock on Saturday, your rain date is 3 o'clock on Sunday. If we
Interesting.
have to
Okay.
cancel and you can't make it 3 o'clock on Sunday, okay, see you next year.
Got it.
See you at the full session.
Yep.
If I do add Veterans Day, I have to be a little bit more creative about, because we do have bad weather sometimes. These are outdoor sessions for me. I've considered doing studio space, but
It's
even with
different. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, besides the cost, for me, I would be worried about getting the same level of variety
Yep.
that I can get, in a little yard or park or whatever that has rock walls and things like that. I did touch on do front load the investment. Don't make this let them, take the money and run kind of situation
Yeah.
for them. I mentioned the way I had done it, but there's lots of ways to do that. I mean, even if you're a all-inclusive photographer, you just require a hefty enough deposit that they're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna just figure that it's worth it
Yeah.
without the later commitment. Do market strategically. And I touched on that as well because another huge benefit of it can be that more people hear about what it is that you actually do,
Mm-hmm.
and you get newsletter subscribers, and it's just a greater way of staying in front of more people, even the people who don't necessarily book you that year.
Right.
So that's smart. And probably the biggest thing is to really communicate before, during, and after about what these are, what people can expect from them, where there might be exceptions, where there will definitely not be exceptions, and to me, maybe most importantly, how these are different from what you normally do, and how the mindset needs to shift or should shift between those 10 minutes in the park and that hour or 2 hours or however long I spend with you when I come for your full session the following year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as far as don'ts, it's just sort of the opposite of that. I mean, I say that my business is set up in a way that these really are perfect for me. And if you have a business like mine, I don't know why you wouldn't do this,
Yeah.
but I think that there's lots of ways that you could do it, even if your business is different,
Mm-hmm.
by following those do's. I'm an in-home family photographer. We might step outside for a few, but you're not going to get kids standing outside in the park
Right.
with me. You're just not. I mean, so much so that when I'm talking about the holiday cards, I'm like, yeah, put them in matching, tartan
Sure.
plaid dresses.
Do
I don't
whatever you
care.
want. Yeah.
But I will not let you do that when I come to your house.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I will talk you out of that
Right.
vehemently.
Yeah.
You know, I don't let families be in the parents. I don't let parents be in the micro mini sessions, but I will send separate emails to a family of a brand new toddler,
Mm-hmm.
like, just be photo ready just in case. If the
Right.
kid is terrified of me,
Yes.
you might be used as a prop.
Smart.
To either hold them on a hip or hold them over their shoulder, or say, come on, let's just do one with the three of you. And then I've given you extra special attention, and you're definitely going to buy your full gallery,
Definitely. Yeah.
But if you're an outdoor family photographer, I think that there's lots of different ways that you can offer this without giving away the whole cow. I have a
Right.
friend who is like a golden hour photographer who, instead of running out of spots in the fall every year, she only offers these shorter golden hour sessions in the fall,
Mm-hmm.
and markets throughout the year saying, if you want a custom session at home or at a location that you can bring dogs to, or you need a little extra time or whatever it is, you have to book
Mm-hmm.
January through June, because I only offer this in the fall. It's basically just taking advantage of the very specific demand that you get in the fall and thinking about how you can use that to your benefit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because those slots, those times, no matter if you're golden hour or just like there's only so many days and hours and whatever in that period of time. So it is a limited resource and you want to present it that way to people.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Even if you're in a place where you're not fully booked and you're feeling that burn, it is, it's good to remind yourself and those people. Because if you book a bunch of like smaller, low paying, whatever jobs, that means you've run out of the time, and if those great sessions come along, you have to say no, or you have to say, all I have for you is
exactly
is this one thing. So yeah, no, I think that's really
and
smart.
that's another reason why it works really well with my business. I've always been low volume.
Mm-hmm.
As the years have gone on, I'm booking fewer and fewer weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a family that can't possibly take a weekday morning or leave work early off of work or refuses to take your kids out of school, then we're going to be talking about January or February because those are the only weekend days, which I love. I mean, I love my business the most when it's chill,
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Truer words have never been spoken. Jay, you have shared so many great mini ideas within this bigger idea. And I know that people are going to have follow-up questions that I have somehow missed here. I am myself like scribbling notes to consider how I might incorporate something like this because I really do love this concept. So let everybody know where they can find you, where they can reach out to you if they want to ask something, if you're open to that.
Sure. The best way to catch me is through my website, which is jaymclaughlin.com. Tricky thing right now is that my Google business profile has been suspended for some reason.
So annoying. We'll see.
So the only thing that's tricky about that really is that now in order to find my website, you have to know how to spell my name.
Or
Google
you can follow the link in the show notes because I will link you.
Do that.
There you go.
That. That's perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to talk about it. Like, honestly, I'm one of these people who these kinds of like business strategies, like the creative part of owning a business is one of my favorite parts, which is why, I'm driving in my car talking back to you, Anami, and all of your guests when you're giving these brilliant episodes every week. I mean, this is what I love to talk about. So
I know.
Do reach out. That's the easiest way. I'm also on Instagram at Jaye McL, JAYEMCL.
Great.
And I'd be happy to hear from anybody.
Awesome. So good. Well, you can expect your inbox to light up, I'm sure, along with all of your session inquiries, which is going to be like all coming in at the same time. So
yep, 'tis the season.
I appreciate you being willing to share this idea and then to be there to kind of bounce these ideas around with people. Such a great idea. I love this. My favorite thing about the podcast is being a platform where these kinds of ideas can get shared. So thank you so much. And
thank you.
It was so great to see your face. I'm looking forward to talking to you again soon, but until next time.
Thanks a lot, Anami. Thank you.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of This Can't Be That Hard. I'll be back same time, same place next week. In the meantime, you can find more information about this episode, along with all the relevant links, notes, and downloads at thiscan'tbethatHard.com/learn. If you like the podcast, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Even better, share the love by leaving a review in iTunes. And as always, thanks so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic week.